So, gravitational potential energy problems. Basically, our formula for gravitational potential energy is gravitational potential energy in joules is equal to mass in kilograms times the force of gravity, which is 9.8 newtons per kilogram, and then the height of the object. So, G is always known unless you are calculating this for somewhere like the moon or another planet or something like that. It's always going to be 9.8. So really the big things you need to know are you need to know either the energy in joules, you need to know the mass in kilograms, or you need to know the height in meters. So we'll look at the first one, the example problem up here. So a 4.0 kilogram ceiling fan is placed 2.5 meters above the floor. What is the gravitational potential energy of the Earth's ceiling fan system relative to the floor? So you set this up. So you have GPE equals mgh. And we know that m is 4 kilograms. And I'll plug that in right there. We know G is 9.8 newtons per kilogram. And then we know the height. So the height is equal to 2.5 meters in this case. So we plug that in right here. So basically what we have is this equation. So we have GPE equals 4.0 kilograms times 9.8 newtons per kilogram times 2.5 meters. Kilograms cancel out. And by the way, joules, remember, equal Newton meters, right? So Newton meters is what's left. So we plug all this in. So 4 times 9.8 times 2.5 should give us GPE of 98 joules. Okay, so that's if you're given the mass and the height. If you're given energy, well, for example, if they gave you 98 joules, and then they gave you that as GPE, and then they gave you 2.5 meters as H, well, then the question is, what's your mass? Mass is what you don't know. So you just do this like the others. You just kind of plug this into the same equation. So you take your GPE equals mgh. GPE, you know, then is 98 joules. Mass, we don't know. G is 9.8 newtons per kilogram. And H, we are given 2.5 meters. Okay. So you could simplify, you could go ahead and multiply these two together. Or you could just divide the whole thing by 9.8 newtons per kilogram times 2.5 meters. Do the same thing on the other side. Okay, that would make that cancel out. That cancels out. And if you plug that into a calculator, you should end up with 4 kilograms for the mass. And finally, the last situation might be that they give you the GPE and the mass, and you got to figure out the height. So you just do it the same sort of way. So you'd say GPE equals mgh, and let's assume they gave us the same numbers. So we'll say the GPE is 98 joules. Say the mass is 4 kilograms. G is again 9.8 newtons per kilogram. And then height you don't know. Okay, so then you just take both sides and divide them by the 4.0 times the 9.8 newtons per kilogram. And do the same thing on the other side. Kind of running out of room. Just go do it without units over here. Okay, so this cancels out. This cancels out. That leaves you with h. And if you take 98 divided by 4, and then divide that by 9.8, or you could multiply these two, simplify this, and then take 98 divided by that. If you do all that in the calculator, you should end up with 2.5 meters. Okay. And the way the units work out on that, you have joules on the top, then on the bottom you have kilograms, and then newtons, sorry, not meters, newtons per kilogram on the bottom. So really, this cancels out. So you're left with joules over newtons. Well, newtons, remember, or actually, sorry, joules are Newton meters. So if you take that, so this is equal to Newton meters over newtons. That cancels out and you're left with meters as your unit. So that kind of goes through how to answer all these. The only other thing you need to do is double check and make sure they're not giving you any weird things where you got to convert something before you can actually use it. 'Cause remember, you have to have it in joules, you have to have kilograms, and you have to have meters. If you have something else, you got to convert it. But this first one here, again, these are the ones that are in the problem set that you got to answer. But this first one is already in kilograms. It's in meters, so you're actually given your mass and you're given the height. So you are actually just going to use 9.8 again, because it doesn't say this is on the moon or anything. This is on Earth. So 9.8 newtons per kilogram is going to be G. And then this is your mass, and this is your height. So you just plug those numbers in, use a calculator, and solve for GPE.